meeting with us. So this is kind of where Joe and I are
Mhm.
at. I think for the project we're working on, where we've we've gone down the road of defining a security architecture based
Mhm.
on our understanding of an environment's components
Mhm.
and its flows, right?
Mhm.
So I think Joe, you've got some basic examples. I've also taken what I've taken is I just created a brand. I pulled the latest workspace. I copied the ADSM directory into my workspace so I could open it up, and I watched the video where you guys had initially talked about how do you how do you define an ADSM and kind of its role in the whole security architecture process. So we're we were going to do this is and Joe and I kind of see if this is something you'd want to do too is we were going to go through and make start with a really basic example that way we can work off of it. Unless Joe, you have something that you could show. I think you're
You're
Joe.
you're mute. Nope, can't hear you.
Yeah, still.
Nope.
How about
Well, he
now? There we
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, every now and then my settings will just decide that it would rather try to use my camera as a microphone, even though I'm not even sure it has one.
Mhm.
Okay, so I do have a. Wait, that's funny. I don't know what happened. I think I might have copied a file funny and accidentally deleted all of my whole ADSM. That's not good.
Uh, so you don't commit it to a Git repository or maintain a GitHub private repo for any of that?
We just actually started one that I was
Mhm.
trying to commit one of the files to, but
Okay.
I seem to have broken it and trying to copy.
What
So yeah, I'll have to fix that.
what we've done to date though is we've created a private repo, Vinay, and
Mhm.
so all of the aspiring security analysts that we have interning with us, we're going to be creating ADSMs because we're doing assessment work where we're looking at architectures, and
Mhm.
then now we're starting to put it all together. So we've got them finally on to the point where they can commit to a GitHub, and I'm going to be
Mhm.
committing to it. It's just the kind of set a phony moment where I think Joe had some stuff. I'm starting to put things together. But in the interest of time, uh, do you want to share with you what you had at the beginning of the call? You said you had some
Yeah.
ideas,
Yeah.
or you want to
Yeah.
start with that?
Yeah. Sure. So I don't have any presentation. It's just a method that I have seen work at my company. So what I do basically is when I start a review project, first I note down all the contacts. Normally, what has worked for me is to know who the engineers are, the people who are managing the application development, who the infrastructure folks are, because at some point you need to understand the infrastructure. Third, if they have any kind of QA or testing folks, it's always good to know them because they know some of the darker corners of the code where there are bugs. So it's always nice to talk to QA to see what they have found. And so that kind of saves you time. And then fourth, know who the project manager is because you need to coordinate with them on the status, on the tasks that are open, and so on. So I normally maintain a worksheet for every project, and this is like the first paragraph of that, like the four contact roles that I'll need for the project. The next step is basically ask them to explain the architecture and start building the ADSM. So when you start building the ADSM, you're just capturing the entities and flows, nothing more. So it's they talking about architecture and you replicating that in a YAML file. It's straightforward, and depending on the architecture, it may take an hour or 2 days, 3 days, depends on the size. The next interesting, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, do you typically do that real time, or do you ask for like artifacts and you come to them and with the?
It depends on the project. Some projects do document their architecture, so it's easier to do offline. In which case, you just ask them on the kickoff call whether they have an architecture diagram or any documentation that I can use offline. If that is the case, use that and create your ADSM offline. You don't have to waste their time. But some teams are not that good at documentation. So it's always better to sit down with them and ask them to explain their project and what entities are involved in those. So it really depends on how the project team habits apply to their development cycles. But this will apply help in both cases. Once you have your ADSM, the interesting trick that I discovered was start talking about abuse cases. Normally, when you ask somebody about what your project does, basically you're asking them for use cases. So let's assume you have an architecture with few components and flows between them. Ask them what use cases does this architecture solve, or what does it implement? If the team has been working on it for a long time, they know all the use cases they have. Just put them in a temporary scratchpad, notepad, whichever works fastest for you. I normally put it in a separate markdown file that is kept as a internal artifact for the project. The main reason I do that is I want to define abuse cases. For every use case, you typically tend to find an abuse case. Say a user, for example, you have a company website where if you fill in your details, they may give you a discount on the product. Let's say a simple example. In that case, when you have fields where you put your name, your email address, I can always put an SQL query. So for every use case, you have an abuse case that you can start thinking of. Now, once I start thinking of abuse case, I create one ADM file per abuse case. So basically, that's one ADM model for every abuse case I'm thinking of. And when you do that, in no time, within like 1 to 2 hours, you'll like end up with a huge list of abuses that you can think of. And that gives you a very nice starting point for defining attack and defense models. Previously, I've never explained how you get from ADM to ADSM to ADM. Now, this trick kind of helps you a lot. And for one of the projects I was working at my company, in half a day, I was able to like come up with 10 abuse cases, which means 10 ADM models out of the blue in 2 hours. So I kind of really like the trick. So I've been applying that in all my projects here. So I thought maybe I'll share that with you too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I, you know, what I like about that is it puts it in the context of how that a common language that everybody understands. So everyone understands use cases. And then I think what I've, and maybe it's just me, but I think in the past, we've all kind of laser focused in on vulnerabilities or scanners or tools or gone to a pen test, but then the why behind that is not there, right?
Yeah. And what I also do is when I put a model, empty model, instead of saying as an attacker and as a defender, I just put the abuse case as a plain text explanation. So I say model and the model name. And in the next line, I start typing out the entire abuse case as if it's a paragraph. ADM will still use that because it doesn't find as an attacker and as a defender lines. So it'll just start ignoring the rest of the text. So the tool will work perfectly fine even with this approach. Later tomorrow, when you want to really refine your ADM models, you can replace the abuse case explanation with what the attacker and defender wants. But that is much more down the line, more of an optimization step.
Given that we have about 19 minutes left, do you think there's enough time to go through one example?
Sure. So do you want me to go through an example, or do you have one that I can?
I've got a Let me pull it. Let me pull it up. The reason I say that is I have a blank slate,
Mhm.
and I could share my screen, and then I had just done some Googling for some sample identity access management
Mhm.
misuse cases. So
Mhm.
let me bring that up, and then if that's okay, maybe we could take 10 minutes, and then Joe,
Yeah.
did you have anything, Joe? If not, I could probably.
Yeah, I had a starter ADSM for a web app that we're looking at, but I lost it to some copy and paste errors earlier, getting it up to GitHub. So yeah, I just take a little second here and try to recreate it in the background.
Okay, so what I'll do then is I'll just present. Let's see, share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see I have VS Code up?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to workspace, right? And let's see. So this will just be just a really basic example. So
Mhm.
so when you're saying create, do you just create the SM spec file first and then that, or
Yes. Yeah. So create an empty SM spec, let's say example.sm spec, and we can get started from there.
SM spec?
Yeah.
Okay.
So open that. Now copy the header for YAML language server, so that way you can. Okay.
Yeah,
Pick one of the yeah
I'll just grab one of the examples.
tests
Examples.
examples. Yeah. Just pull the header. Yeah. So the rest of the items you'll have to fill in. So you have to put the name and so on. Maybe you should open the simple.sm spec to the side so that you can copy paste some of the stuff.
Okay.
Saves you
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Yeah. So copy the title, and title should be good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like that?
Yeah. Why is it not applying syntax highlighting? I'm not sure. Anyway, this should still be fine. You can remove the design document line. Doesn't really help at this point. Now add an external section, or maybe let's just do entities. I don't want to talk about external ones.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll just copy one of these just to get started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So instead of externals, just rename it to entities.
Oh, you know why? I fat fingered the name. Let me just move.
Okay.
So let me just change the name real quick. That's my fault. Example.sm spec.
Yeah.
And then I'll open. There we go.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. So instead of externals, rename it to entities.
Entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's name the ID, change the ID to server.
Server.
Yeah. Type is a program. Name is internet facing server. Description, you can just copy the same for now.
Let's see if I can find.
No, you can just copy the name as a description.
Oh, okay. Okay, got
it. Just repeat it. That's all.
Okay.
Now remove the interface line. It's not for services. and make ADM as an empty array. So ADM colon open bracket close,
ADM colon.
square bracket open close. It should be, yeah. So this is a very simple ADSM. It's, I think, showing an error under title. Can you just hover over it? I think we are missing something. Huh? Okay. Okay, it seems to be, oh, okay. The YAML language server is looking locally for your schema. It's not looking to the GitHub location. That's fine. Your tool should still work with this.
Okay. Okay.
Now, going forward, first step is ask your customer what the server is going to do. So let's say I'm playing your customer's role. You are the one who is evaluating my deployment.
Okay.
So obviously, the first question is, what does the server do? What are its use cases?
So let's say it's a file server where we're sharing files.
Okay. Let's say I'm your customer. I'm running a file server. The use cases for my file server is to share documents within my team. And my team is completely remote, so they are all over the world. So I can't have it on a corporate network. I need to have it on the internet. Now, because I'm sharing files with my team, I need some kind of access control. Currently, I don't have a really great access control, but I want to have something like that. The files that are inside there are basically company documents, documents about our customers. So any kind of paperwork that our customers give us, we tend to store it there. And let's assume we are a company of 10 people. Now, when I am explaining you all of this, you suddenly start seeing kind of light bulbs going in your head, probably. Like, this is the use case, this is how I can abuse it. So what you can do is start a temporary markdown file in your project directory. Let's say usecases.md. Yeah. So in usecases.md, since it's a markdown file, you can write a free-form use cases list. So put a header called use cases. Yeah. And then make a bulleted list of all the use cases that you think are applicable here. So one of the use cases, sharing company internal files. Second use case is, I would say, hold customer documents. And share tax information with the accountant, maybe. Because if I'm holding my company data, I tend to put my financial documents there too with our accountant. Yeah. So this should be good enough for the example now. So if these are the three use cases I gave you, what do you think are the abuses for these?
So maybe some of the files that are sensitive, not everybody needs to have access to, or
yeah. So the abuse case is when I'm sharing company internal files, the way I can abuse is copy sensitive documents or gain access to sensitive documents can be an abuse case.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, hold customer documents means gain access to restricted customer document.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is because it's tax information, gain access to tax IDs and financial data.
Mm-hmm.
All three are abuse cases. What I do is I create 3 ADM files now. So go back to your command line and say touch finance.adm, for example. Similarly, customer.adm. And one more would be internal docs.adm, for example. Now that you have created 3 ADMs, go back to the SM spec and include all these ADMs under that.
Just so, do they have to be
It
encoded
must,
or?
need not be. You don't have to quote them.
Oh, okay.
Just
So,
put those file names in as a comma separated list.
okay. Use. Oh, okay. So it would be finance.adm,
Yeah, finance.adm, comma,
customer.adm, internal docs.adm.
yeah. So your ADSM kind of is slowly taking shape. Now go back to each of your ADMs and let's start filling up some basics. So let's give a model a title.
So
Gain unauthorized access to finance data. Yeah. So under this, if you tab it once, add a tab. Yeah, you can just do a free-from explanation of this abuse case. So yeah, think about it and type a very basic 2-sentence abuse case.
So maybe an employee reads in leadership or reads financial forecasts.
Yeah.
And uses it to make stock decisions. Stock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So this is an insider threat kind of a scenario.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So similarly for the other 2 models, if you just can add 1 abuse case each, the other 2 model files.
So I'll just go to the other 2. So finance, internal doc ADM.
Yeah.
So this one, I think like gain authorized to employee data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Employee reads the employee files.
Yeah.
The employee yearly review for a coworker, and shares the findings with others.
Yeah. Maybe instead of yearly review, you can say the salary hike data.
Oh yeah.
That's more interesting for people.
Oh yeah, that's true. The salary, the salary data for a coworker.
Yeah.
Oh, you know how he makes this much? Okay, so that's internal docs, and then customer. This is one I've seen is like employee takes the data and then uses it to sell to the customers. Or
either sell to customers or sell to our competition, for example.
Oh yeah, reads customer data and uses it and sells it to the competition.
And sells it to competition, yeah. Customer data, I think you missed the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Customer.
Reads customer data. Yeah.
Okay.
So now, within like 10 minutes, you have a simple ADM with simple ADSM with 3 ADM files for just single entity.
Yes.
And this is just thinking off the top of our head on what can happen. But if you start thinking about your actual customer with whom you are using this, I'm pretty sure within an hour you may come up with 10 or 20 abuse cases. So now if you go back to, let's say, command prompt and generate ADSM report, you already start seeing some of the output.
So we have like ADSM stat,
yeah,
and then simple.
Yeah, not simple. Example.
Oh, so example.
SM spec.
SM spec.
Yeah, that's still fine because it's not able to find attacker and defender lines.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it'll complain because it's assuming that you will put it. So that's still fine.
Okay.
But if you say ADSM report.
ADSM report.
Yeah. Yeah, so there should be a report directory now created. Yeah, if you go to the report directory, and yeah, you have a simple markdown. Go to resources now under that, and you have ADM.
So should I open this?
Yeah, so GraphViz preview, if you open it as a GraphViz preview.
Let's see. This
Not
side.
here.
Okay.
No, you'll have to go to the top bar there. No, the bar on the top, the search kind of bar that you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one?
There, if type open or GraphViz.
GraphViz.
You don't have a GraphViz converter installed, right? Oh, okay. Okay. In that case, you'll have to use the dot command. My mistake.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know we've only got another 2 minutes. What I'll do is before we meet again, I'll flesh this out more. I'll send you a link to our repo as a collaborator, and then we'll continue to flesh this out over the next week.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay. I'm sorry we have to drop abruptly, but
no problem.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vinay.
Yes,
Joe.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.